Hello, ladies and gentlemen. All right. Today we're going to be talking about Gen Z and the typical 9 to 5 and the balance between work and life that I feel like some people just do not understand. And also the fact that, yeah, when you get older, you do need to work. Now, I never quite understood the concept of, going to school, going to college, and then going to work. I've been working since I was 15, and I think a lot of other people can kind of relate with that. You start, a job as soon as you can, just so you can get some side money and or pay things that you need to pay that your family can't pay for, you know? I find it kind of funny nowadays that so many people go to, college or are in post-secondary, and then they, graduate, they're in debt, they get themselves in debt by miscalculating for what they need or by calculating for what they need to graduate and it costing them that much and them taking the L for a future job that will have to pay off as well their debts. Now, again, we're going to break down some TikToks and I'm going to add some perspective here that I feel like a few people are missing, but also that I can just make a point of because this is something that actually is an important deal to me. I do not believe in the typical 9 to 5. I believe in working all the time. I believe in constantly working for self-development. That could mean working 2 hours a day or 10 hours a day or 20 hours a day. You just need to do it. And maybe my perception is a bit extreme. It's not 0 or 100. It's not black and white. But it's definitely beyond the scope of what people idealize as the typical 9 to 5 because at the end of the day, that isn't very livable. Like, most places, if you work a 9 to 5 at a minimum wage establishment, you're not going to make it. You're not going to make it anywhere. So we're going to just get into this and break down the video, and I'm going to make some points here.
Why is it that I have to work 40 hours a week just so I can have a place to live? 40 hours a week makes me $2,000 a month, and my rent is $1,660. So I work 40 hours a week so I can have a 2-bedroom apartment. I don't know what to do. I'm not made for this.
Okay, so this is obviously like the quartering reacting to this as well. But one thing that's a big problem here is you're renting out a 2-bedroom on your own for $1,660. I don't know if that even includes utilities or anything like that, but if you're renting out an apartment, you need to go, if you're living on your own and you can find a place, studio all the way, or a 1-bedroom. Why on earth are you paying for a 2-bedroom when it's just you? That doesn't make any sense at all. And on top of that, let's just do some math on here for a second, because that doesn't sound like a ton of money, but, we'll pull up the calculator, the handy dandy calculator. She makes $2,000 per month. Divide that by 40-hour work weeks. She makes $12.50 an hour. I don't know if that's after taxes. I assume it is. $12.50 an hour after taxes. Suboptimal, my dudes. Very suboptimal. Not decent at all. That is basically getting to a point of unlivable. I don't know where this girl lives, but minimum wage over in Texas is like $7.25 an hour. You can't really live off of it. But most places, they don't hire you for $7.25 an hour. At most establishments, you're going to find a job that makes more. Even a low-end serving job is going to net you more than that as long as you're in a busy enough place. But, $12.50 an hour, like, that isn't impossible to live off of, but that's tight. Definitely unlivable if you're renting for $1,660 every month and you're just making $2. I don't know how she's going to cope during tax season, or how, she's going to cope with any levels of expenses for, like, fixing a car payments, grocery bills, laundry, food, showering, heat, water. Like, I don't know if any of this is included. I don't know if she's got anyone else helping her. But you are only operating with, $340? You're going to have to never get any food taken out. You're going to have to live off of bread and peanut butter and beans and rice. Like, you're going to have to really lock it down. And to be fair, I've gotten by on, like, a pretty close amount compared to this. But I've always played very opportunistically with my savings. At certain points, I'd live from home. With my family. At certain points, I've also had better paying jobs, or I also have a roommate. And all of that combines itself so that my expenses are literally not even close to this. My expenses for rent are probably like $700 to $800, maybe, depending. And listen, I live in like a bad neighborhood. It's ratty. It is not a place I want to stick around. I'm talking like 4 apartment complex, car thefts in a month, you know, like seriously bad stuff, break-ins, whatever. But again, if you're going to live on your own, you're going to have to take the L somewhere, and apparently that's on my personal safety. But, you know, generally speaking, like, all this girl needs to do is get, like, a roommate or downsize. She's probably on the lease already, so she's not going to be able to downsize for the next year or 6 months or whenever her lease is up. But she can generally get away with, at the very least, you know, doing anything. And also, if you're working 40 hours a week, yeah, that's rough. But that's only, like, 8 hours a day. You have probably 2 days that you're off in the week, and you can use those days to hustle a little bit more money. Now, I get it. You know, it's not fun. She looks like a young girl, a young little tot, but this is just part of life, my guy. Like, this is just how it goes. You know, $2,000 a month, $1,660. You can bump that up to $25. You can pick up an extra shift, or you can start your own side gig of some kind. Like, what do you like to do is the question. Like, you know, it doesn't take that much work to go on to Chime or Fiverr or something, or, you know, have connections to people that you make. Maybe sell them some baked goods or something. That's what I've thought to do. I haven't done it yet. But, you know, there's tons of side hustles you can have. Tons of little things that you don't even need to spend a ton of money to do. You just need to get the ball rolling. You know, if she likes to draw, she could do art. She could do digital art. Digital art's super, super popular these days. She could do some logo design, some basic drafting for somebody. And even if all else fails, she can talk to her family members maybe, or, you know, I know we don't all have family all the time, but she can just ask for some advice, some basic advice. And also, to be fair, like, I don't know where she works, but she could just look for a better job on her off time. Like, if you're not making enough to survive, you have to jump another job field. And maybe she doesn't have the experience, but she's got to be able to pull it out somehow. Like, you can't just stay in the suspended state of reality and cry on TikTok about it, which is my number one issue, by the way. You're crying on TikTok about it. And yeah, dude, it's rough. It's unlivable. Most of the things that we experience are pretty unlivable. Like, dude, I get it. Like, there are a lot of instances where your wage is going to be pretty unlivable. Like, we've all been there. I'm pretty sure we've all had a job where we pretty much bled money. I probably invested into 2 jobs that have cost me more money than they're worth. One being that I worked at a wing place, had my catalytic converter stolen. My pay from the wing place didn't even cover the catalytic converter after I quit. It was ridiculous, all right? We all deal with it. We all deal with rough stuff, but you just gotta suck it up, buttercup, and you gotta move on. Like, it's one rough patch in life, and maybe she has a lot of them. You know, maybe she's overwhelmed, or maybe she doesn't have a lot of them at all, and this is new to her. But this is just life, man. I probably work about 40 hours, give or take, depending on my shifts. But, you know, I've worked other jobs where you're working like 12-hour days, 5 days a week, 6 days a week. You pick up on a double so that you can make a little extra cash because you're desperate. You just do it. You gotta suck it up. And it sucks. Like, it sucks. Like, I don't really want people to have this mentality where they have to constantly work the 9 to 5, because I don't really believe in the 9 to 5. You know, I don't really, you know, I used to work way more than a 9 to 5, and then I've also worked less than a 9 to 5, and I've also been self-employed before, which is unstable, and if you don't do it right, you are screwed, which when I was younger, did not do it right, alright? So, for me, I never pulled off making a lot of money from a 9 to 5 or a non-9 to 5, but, generally speaking, complaining on TikTok's just not going to do anything for you. So this girl took a 9 to 5, and I know this has been like a viral video on TikTok about Gen Z complaining about the 9 to 5, but we'll actually go through this video and break it down.
There's no way I'm going to be able to afford living in the city right now, so that's off the table. Like, fucking duh! If I was able to walk to work, and it'd be fine, but I'm not. So it literally takes me, I leave here I get on the train at 7:30, and I don't get home till 6:15 earliest, and then, I don't have time to do anything. I want to shower, eat my dinner, and go to sleep. I don't have time or energy to cook my dinner either. I don't have energy to work out. That's out the window.
I just have to point out a couple of things. One, most of the time living in the city is completely unlivable. It's completely, unaffordable. I remember when I was planning at a certain point, and this was before COVID happened, I had this idea that I needed to go to school to basically get an education after high school. And I decided on going to animation school. And I was probably going to go to just Vancouver Film School. And I was going to take, like, courses in animation. And I was going to do 2D animation or something like that. And I'd done the math on it. I did the calculations for it. And I love how she's complaining about getting on a train at 7:30. Because outside of that town that I was going to be living out of, it was going to be get up at like 4:30 in the morning, get to my school, get home after probably like, a couple hours of train riding. It was going to be at least 3.5 hours of riding the bus system because that's just how it goes. Like most people in Canada and like Vancouver, the lower mainland, we rely on public transportation, and you have to take, usually to get out of my town that I was in, one bus, and then the SkyTrain, and then probably another bus to get through town, and then you have to do that again to get home. So, and I have friends that work in Vancouver, they live in Vancouver, and, it sucks. You gotta put a lot of time into that. But I did the calculations, and I thought to myself, do I want to do this, work longer to go to school, and then be $50,000 in debt for everything I want to do, for 1 year of schooling? And I told myself I can hunker down and I can do it for a year. Did I do it? No, thank God, because then COVID happened and they would have shut down all the schooling. I would have been in debt for no reason. But you can also find all this education online. The only thing that school would have consisted of was networking mainly. But generally speaking, it sucks. You go to school, but I don't understand why people just go to school willy-nilly. You have to calculate for it. Going to school, totally up to you. I think it has its place in some capacities. I'm personally not inclined. My family members have always discouraged post-secondary schooling because they feel like it's a scam. I'm a little bit more in the middle where, I can see where it has its place, but people also go for completely unnecessary reasons that they never use in the future. So it completely depends on what you're trying to do. But when you have somebody who's done the calculations and gone to school, and now they're complaining about the job. What did you expect this would be? Easy after the school? The school is just a primer for the experience you have to gather that you might not be able to even garner when you first end up in the industry that you're working in. I don't know where she works, but dude. And also, on top of that, if you have to get up, get to work, get on the bus, whatever, do your thing at 7:30, that gives you still, if you're smart and you're willing to, sleep, even if you're sleeping 8 hours a day, you can get up, go to work, come home, leaves you at least 4 to 6 hours to do what you need to do, at least. And it's tiring and exhausting, but it's what you gotta do to live. You gotta do your thing, I don't know, man. I just don't understand why people, get into certain jobs, though, because I never went to college. I never ended up going to college, I have to point this out, and I still make, good enough money to where I can survive. So maybe she's also upset because she invested this time into something thinking that it would be easier after the education than it actually is. I don't know.
I'm so upset. Oh my God. Nothing to do with my job at all, but just the 9 to 5 schedule in general is crazy. Being in the office 9 to 5, if it was remote, you get off at 5 and you're home and everything's fine. But I'm not home. It takes me long to get home and
So she's not even complaining about the job, but she is complaining about the job hours. So, that's even more silly. It's most jobs can be operated remotely when they're office-space jobs, but she has to go into an office to do her job. She's complaining about the fact that she has to commute to this job. And, that sucks, but why not try and invest yourself, if you have the abilities, into a vehicle or a closer job? I get it's all in the city, but how far out are you? I'm not trying to be a jerk because, again, I have my sympathies. I've been in situations in Vancouver. You have to travel for 2 hours to get into the city if you're anywhere outside of Vancouver in the Tri-Cities. I was actually in Port Coquitlam, which was a subset of Coquitlam. So you actually got to take a bus from Port Coquitlam, somewhere in there, to where the SkyTrain is in Coquitlam, and then go into the city. Now, and that's not even, a specific location. That's just the SkyTrain. So, I get it, man. But why didn't you do these calculations prior for what job you were getting into? And also, it's not a work-from-home job, which you probably could have gotten some kind of an education for if you wanted to really worry about that. Maybe it's she didn't calculate for the concept of a commute. But then on top of that, you're just complaining about the hours. And I don't know, it's kind of ridiculous. I don't know. I feel like a 9 to 5, although the timing is suboptimal because to get to a 9 to 5, you gotta get up earlier than that, travel, do what you need to do. But at the same time, you're also, like, not really working that many hours, in my opinion. Maybe it's because I've worked more or less hours shift-wise, but I don't think it's that indecent. The other thing I have to ask is, like, why aren't you calculating for a job that's closer to you? Or that you can, like, eventually bring closer to you? If it's that lengthy of a travel that is bothering you, you can work with that or get a vehicle of some kind and then just pay for parking. It's suboptimal, but it's still doable. You got to make anything work. This is the problem. So you got to make something work. You got to pick what you need to make work.
Like, people that drive to the office, like, you don't get off at 5. And I know it could be worse. I know I could be working longer, but, like, I literally get off, it's pitch black. Like, I don't have energy. How do you have friends? Like, how do you have time to, like, meet, like, a guy? I don't know. Like, how do you have time for, like, dating? Like, I don't have time for anything, and I'm, like, so stressed out. And I'm also getting my period, so that's why I'm all emotional. But, like, am I so dramatic? It's fine.
We're all dramatic. I mean, I'm dramatic because I'm Italian, so, I mean, like, you know, we're all dramatic. But, you know, it does suck. I'm not trying to say a 9 to 5 is good, but I am saying, oh, maybe I'm dramatic because of my period. Yeah, sure, like, hormone fluctuations can, like, mess with you and all that, and maybe, you know, screw with, like, your reactions to things. Like, I get it. But at the same time, this whole concept of freaking out about a 9 to 5 and, you know, having no energy for friends and stuff, this is just part of life. Like, maybe in school it was different, where you could just, like, go to school, finish your courses, go home, party, get drunk every other night, get drunk every night. But for most people, that's just not how the world works, and you've got to pick out what times you want to get screwed up and or work on yourself. Like, and also, I don't understand this because listen, I get the idea of working and then you're exhausted. I get it. There's something about it where the first few hours of your day you're most productive, and then the rest of it all goes down after you work a 9 to 5 or any shift at the job that you have outsourced from your home. But the best thing I can recommend is if you're already exhausted getting out of work, just go to bed basically right when you get home, and then get up super early and then start your day and then work productively and then go to work. That gives you enough time. Say hypothetically, you get back from your 9 to 5, it's like 8 o'clock or something. Something silly, 8 o'clock at night. You go to bed, you wake up at 4 in the morning because you get a nice little 8 hours of sleep or whatever the case is. Okay? You're up at 4. That gives you 3 hours. All right? And that's if you get home at 8 or, you want to get settled down, maybe watch some Netflix, or you're willing to cut hours. Like for me, I would just cut my hours down to like 7, 6, 5, whatever you need to do, and then just overhaul some sleep on the weekend, get back to like, I don't know, give yourself like solid 10 hours of sleep for one day. And, you just keep hustling. But that gives you plenty of time to get up, work out, do your thing. Yeah, it sucks. It sucks, but you gotta just do it. And that's just life. Like, I just don't understand why... The one thing that bothers me is why these individuals don't calculate for this when they're in school. It's gonna get harder when you get out of school, and then eventually your pay grade goes up. Maybe you can take more days off. Maybe you change industries. But, like, if you didn't want to work a 9 to 5, or you don't like the hours of a 9 to 5, why would you get yourself an education where you have to work a 9 to 5? It just doesn't make any sense to me. And now you got this lovely little lass, who's actually going to be making a little bit of sense here. So let's do this. And, I don't think I'm Gen Z. I might be Gen Z. I was born in 99. So... Listen, man, I'm in Gen Z, alright? I was born in 99, alright? Right out of the 90s. And I gotta say, like, I don't understand. Maybe it's because I kind of grew up more on the poor side, and, like, I didn't have these opportunities to start working after school. I was working basically at, like, age 15. That's when I started working. I was working at that fish and chip shop for, like, 3 years. And then I ended up quitting when I was, like, 17. Worked in self-employment where I'd work, like, all day. Not really make jack. Then I got across the border in 2021, and I got serving jobs, mainly, and I bounced from job to job, and I actually networked my way to having a decent enough wage to survive, but, like, I don't think I've ever not worked consistently other than when I was self-employed, which was actually the most work I've ever done. Like, working a normal job is way less difficult, because at least then you have designated times and assured pay, and usually some level of benefits. So it just kind of blows my mind. I don't know. I just did my tax refund, by the way, and I actually don't owe this year, which is the best thing I've ever heard in my entire life. Like, this is the thing. It's like, I don't understand exactly the entirety of why people are so screwed up about this, because I've never actually, I've been working since I was a kid, or since I was like a young teenager, a young adult, and I knew other kids who had to do the same because we didn't have any other options. But then I've also known people who don't do any of that, and they just, they're taken care of, by their middle class family at home. They're sheltered until they go to, high school, and then they go to high school and they're still sheltered. They go to college and they're still sheltered. And sure, they might be in debt, but their family members pay for it, or they get benefits and stuff, or whatever the case is. And then they end up going to their 9 to 5 eventually. They start working, and they don't like it because that's all they've known is for other people to pay for them and take care of them. That's the main thing I've seen. I haven't actually seen a lot of people get upset when they've calculated for it. They know the work that goes into it, and they've also worked beforehand. I mean, we all complain. We all complain about work. Everybody who works complains about work. These people are just blowing up because they complain about work online and to an audience of individuals who will be open to judging them. But it's still something that's worthy of thinking about. And this is why I really have to encourage you guys, before you start getting into school, please calculate for what's going to come after that. I'm sorry I'm ranting, but it's serious. Just calculate for it. You got to calculate for everything, honestly, in this day and age especially.
I cannot stand how the news has been dogging Gen Z and calling them lazy for not wanting to work a 9 to 5 for the rest of their lives. Let me put it in perspective for everybody who's a little confused here, okay? I work 5 days out of the week, 40 hours a week, okay? I do not make enough to live on my own. I would not make enough to pay rent, water, electric, and eat.
Yeah. That's why you have to get a roommate most of the time, especially if you're working like a close minimum wage job, or, a 9 to 5, or, a 40-hour work week with pay that's anywhere under $15 an hour, I guess, depending on your state. In Canada, it was impossible. It was literally impossible. There were no starting wages after even 4 to 8 years of education that I could have gotten. That would have been, actually, to be fair, 4 years of being a dietitian could have gotten me a pay of like $50,000 a year maybe at the time, and that might have been able to get me I don't know, maybe like a small apartment in Vancouver, and but then that doesn't include any costs of travel, food, utilities, things like that. And to be fair, even small apartments in Vancouver, they're like $2,500 Canadian, so it's pretty bad. Our dollar is terrible, and living in Vancouver is impossible. I know friends who literally, I know tons of friends who cannot live in Vancouver. They have to travel into there. They have to waste basically 4 hours or 2 hours or 3 hours of their day just traveling to work. It's just how life goes.
All by myself. I would not be capable of doing that. 20 years ago when you were getting started, you could live on your own. 20 years ago when you first started, you were able to do everything that I am now struggling to do.
See, I'm not sure about that because I've never really kept up to date with history, but when it comes to any of that, it sucks. Sucks. Sucks for us. Sucks for you. Whatever. Like, yeah, in the past also people could like carry around cooler weapons and stuff. Like, listen, I love building me a good sword, alright? Can't really get away with carrying those in public anymore. It's just part of life. Like, what am I supposed to look back on other generations for people who were like knights in shining armor? Every single generation had their problems, In the past, it was you have to like die and go to war, and you have to, not have rights as a woman, and you have to have more traditionalized life. Like this wouldn't happen to you because you would be living out of a home with your husband that you married at age 17. This is the kind of thing, though. It's like, and maybe I'm thinking like way far out in the past. Maybe I'm thinking too far back because, again, my grasp of history is suboptimal. And, but the women's rights movement was more like 50s to 60s, somewhere in that neck of the woods, right? 60s was when women started getting the actual, consistent rights to get to vote, break out of the more sexist or traditionalized or however some people, I know everybody's got a different perspective on it, but I would deem it unequal at the very least, very unequal, grasps that were upon them based on their circumstances. And also, there have been points where, yeah, as a guy, you're working your 9 to 5, but you also could get drafted any time, or maybe you're not working a 9 to 5, you're digging around in the pits. Also, guys do way more work, when it comes to certain jobs. I have to point out, a lot of women are unwilling to do some of the jobs, like being a plumber, digging around in sewers, dealing with, like, insanely dangerous technical equipment, boiler making, things like that can make you in some senses a lot more money. But, you know, like, even so, like, that's just, like, it's like the risks of the past. The reality is there are so many more regulations now and so many more quality standards that we didn't have in the past for what we currently have as the, like, typical working job scheme that is currently available to the public. So it's much safer now than it's ever been. Sure, like, you can say that now the economy is unlivable, you know, it's super expensive, you can't afford, even though you're working 40 hours a week, to even pay rent on your own. But also, you don't have to have, like, the risk of being crushed to death by industrial equipment, or you don't have to have as much of a risk for, you know, having, I don't know, contamination in your lungs with asbestos. Like, there are differences, and I like this world much more, where I can calculate for more variables and also operate with a host of technologies that the past never got to get myself further. And sure, you can also be damned with the concept of a 9 to 5, but I'd still say it's more appropriate than the experiences of the past. You know, I'm glad that I don't have to go to war or get married before I, you know, fall in love with somebody or feel pressured by my family members to have kids at the age of 18. You know, I'm really proud of the fact that I have a family that supports me, and this is the era where, like, you can do more than you ever could do before. So to be limited or to feel limited by the fact that, like, oh, it was easier in the past, it's never easy. There's always something that's going to come down hard on you generation to generation. It just depends on what. And yeah, you can say, like, okay, they had it easier, but generally speaking, everybody's had it rough. Everybody's had to work for what they need to get, and generation to generation, it just changes with the technologies and the regulations. It's still an issue all going through. And that's in my opinion, though. I don't know.
Let me add another perspective here. You've been working for 20 years. You have 20 years of working experience behind your belt. You have 20 years of experience in a career that has allowed you to gain raises, to get more money, to profit you in an economy that you created. You could sit here and you can call Gen Z lazy.
Okay, but that's what you're literally working to do. I get it. You could, like, laugh at her and go, like, oh, she works at Walmart. You can get raises when you're working at Walmart. You have benefits. I've never wanted to work at a Walmart. I'd rather die. But to be fair, like, you can hustle in any form of retail, any form of service industry work. It is just what it is. But this is the thing. It's like, you're complaining about something that you have yet to acquire to those who've already acquired it, no matter the means. You can still say, oh, you've got it easier, but you have to work to acquire the 20 years of work experience. And sure, you could argue, like, the economy and, like, the unlivability of the economy and stuff, but complaining about how your work experience is lower and that's why people have it easier than you is just disappointing because it doesn't make any sense. Like, I don't understand that argument. It doesn't make any sense.
All you want, but I've been working my tail end off just to barely make it by. And respectfully, I don't want to do that for the rest of my life.
But I feel like, again, like, I'm sorry I keep cutting her off, but, like, where do you think the 20 years of work experience came from? In some instances, sure, they've had it easy, whoever you're referring to, but in other instances, it's not easy. And, like, you know, 20 years back, sure, the economy could have been better, but you still had to work your butt off. Like, she has to work hard, we all have to work hard. We've all been working hard. Like, what do you mean? That's how you get far in life. That's how you can afford your house in the future. You know, and even if you can't, like, yeah, it's really hard to buy a house. It's really hard to own property. It's really hard. And now we're getting into more of a credit-based system where now we're all in debt and everything's all screwed up and blah, blah, blah. But you just have to get good. And I'm not trying to be a jerk, but you have to just get better with this kind of stuff. Like, it isn't a case where it's supposed to be easy to get what you need. If everything were easy, then everyone would have it and it would mean nothing. Like, it devalues the concept of this entire system, which might be also a reason why our economy is so bad, but I digress. I'm sorry.
I don't want to work my tail end off, wasting all of my life working just to barely be able to pay my bills. And that is what you created, not Gen Z. We're just here getting started. You've been doing it for the last 20 years. You tell me how it got ruined. We can sit here and we can call Gen Z lazy all you want, but you let the economy turn into what it did.
That is understandable. You can definitely argue for that. Very reasonable to argue for, like, okay, the past policies have perpetuated a really poor economy now, and that's what we have to calculate for to fix. Other thing, though, I have to point out is, you know, not wanting to work a 9 to 5 forever. This is only one part of your life. Like, I don't know if I'm the only one who thinks this, but you never have to work a 9 to 5 for the rest of your life. You only have to do it now. Like, you can make the changes. You can make the changes and calculations to be able to perpetuate yourself, to have a better profession in the future. Like, again, I really pray and hope for this woman's sanctity and blessed soul that she never ends up working at Walmart for the rest of her life. I really don't think she will. I don't think many people do. She'll definitely move up in life and get further. But the thing is, you have to work hard and move up in life to get further in life. Like, you have to work and put in the effort and do the networking and get the education or the profession or put in the work experience that you need to put in. Some jobs don't require an education. They require work experience. And then you build up through work experience. Dude, it just is what it is. Like, but there's no way this young lady's going to be working at a Walmart the rest of her life. At most, she'll work it a couple of years. She'll find something better. Like, opportunities, they come and go. Just look on Indeed. You know, I'm telling y'all this. Look on Indeed. Find no experience jobs. They'll probably pay more than this. I'm not even kidding. Like, if you don't like working your 9 to 5 at Walmart, find a serving job. I'm not kidding. Find a serving job. You'll probably get paid close to enough. You can work nights or days. Days usually pay less unless you're, like, working particularly at really fancy lunch places or, you know, really busy cafes. But, like, you can augment your schedule. Find places where you're working afternoons to nights only. Or find places where you're working mornings only. Just switch jobs. Like, it's not that deep. Like, this is my biggest issue. It's like, what level of understanding do you have when it comes to working a job if you think that you have to work a 9 to 5? There are tons of jobs out there. There are also night shift jobs. Like, you don't have to work the iconic 9 to 5. You can just work a different series of hours. It's all about putting in the labor so that you can get paid. You don't have to work a 9 to 5. You can literally start a serving job at a dive bar and probably make the equivalent you're making at Walmart. Just switch jobs. If you don't like your job, switch jobs. It sounds like she actually still lives at home. I could be wrong. But if she is living at home, that's the best opportunity to get to switch jobs. Like, you're not in a state of financial instability and being locked down to a job. And if that's the case, by the way, if you're in a state of financial instability and you're locked down with a certain job, like you're working at Walmart and you want to expand out, you have to overhaul usually. It's a nightmare. Got to overhaul and get a second job. Cut your hours down at this job until you're verified for the second job, and then slowly build into that job and basically switch your schedules or put in your 2 weeks and then finish working those 2 weeks while you're also getting the other job and or have the other job. It's a disaster. It's very stressful. But if you're not, like, you know, on your own or you have some savings, this is the perfect opportunity for you to get a different job. So this is my issue with these kinds of videos. It's like there's way more options for you and you're very limited in your perception of like what you can do for a job, education or no. You know, and if you don't like the education that you got, that sucks, but you don't have to live and die by the sword. Even if you got an education where it costs you money, you don't have to use that education if you hate the job. Sure, sucks, you're going to be in debt. Or, hey, you know, you got to suck it up, work a few years, and then your pay grade's going to go way up. But either way, like, you can just switch jobs. If it's not something you want to do, and it's that bad, you can just switch jobs. There's always going to be a job out there for you. Again, if she doesn't like working a 9 to 5 at Walmart, she can go work somewhere else. There's better jobs out there to find. I don't know where she is, but she looks like she's in a city of any kind. She can probably find a restaurant to serve at, some kind of place to serve at, some kind of other job to get. If she wants to work a night job, she could try and get a night job, you know? Like, this is not that deep, and I feel like, what are you doing to help the economy, too? Like, what are you doing to actually help the economy, to recalculate for what people did in the past that screwed up the economy so much so that you have to fix it now? If you're not doing anything, then you're just appealing to futility and complaining online, which, you know, we can all do, like I'm doing right now with my commentary, yapping, like weaponizing my own perspective on camera to make a point against people who are penalized in mass by the judgment of other people who see them on TikTok. But generally speaking, like, it is not that deep. Like, you have to, like, work at something, and she very well could be. Maybe this was the plan all along, get popular on TikTok. I don't know. But I don't think it makes any sense. And, like, I get it's difficult. I get working at, you know, Walmart or a 9 to 5 is going to be difficult. I get that finding another job is going to be difficult. I get that switching jobs is going to be difficult. I get that not being able to afford a place is difficult. Trust me, I've been in a lot of those positions. A lot of us have. You know, Gen Z or no. Like, but you can't just appeal to futility. You gotta figure out the next move. And I really hope she does, because honestly, bless her soul for working at Walmart. I can't imagine. I don't even like to shop at Walmart, let alone the idea of working there. I'd probably rather be dead. But anyways, my people, that was the video. Tell me what you think. Is my perspective askew? I have a pretty, work ethic oriented perspective, and when I find that something's not working for me continually, I just aim to switch jobs and calculate myself out of it for the next thing, and then if it doesn't work out again, I do it again and again and again and again. Like I'm about to get fired, so I'll have to get a new job, that kind of thing. But you know what? It is just what it is. So, tell me what you think in the comments below. Tell me if I'm in the wrong, if they're in the wrong, who's in the wrong, what's your perspective, yada, yada, yada. You get what I'm saying. But anyways, that was the video. Thank you so much for watching, my people. I hope you all enjoyed it, and I will see you next time. Slater.